The sinking of an iron-hulled passenger clipper was not just a tragedy. It was a high-seas horror show. Women locked below deck for their own safety, yet when their vessel plunged to her doom, they remained trapped inside. It happened without warning. In the dead of night, on a fog-shrouded sea off the coast of Brazil, two ships locked on a collision course. Within 5 minutes, hundreds of settlers bound for Australia were gone, including those confined and desperate, terrified women. Join us now as we journey aboard the immigrant ship SS Kapunda on her final heartbreaking voyage. The year was 1887. Steam and sail still ruled the oceans, and British emigrant ships like the Kapunda were lifelines for the working poor, hoping to build new futures in distant colonies. That January, over 300 souls boarded the Kapunda, leaving behind everything they knew. They were headed for Fremantle, Western Australia, until a deadly collision in the Atlantic turned their voyage into a mass grave. This is the forgotten story of one of the deadliest civilian maritime disasters of the 19th century. The SS Kapunda was a nearly 1,100-ton iron sailing ship, three-masted, designed in 1875 to endure the rough passage to the Australian colonies. Owned by Trinder, Anderson & Common, she had made the journey many times before. On this voyage, she carried 272 passengers, including 4 in the saloon, and 41 crew members, totaling 313 people on board. Conditions below deck were tight, but not unusual for the time. The ship was just over a month into its voyage, having departed Plymouth on December 18th. By the early hours of January 20th, she was sailing silently through a heavy fog bank off the coast of Brazil, still far from land. The crew maintained watch, but visibility was dangerously low. Unbeknownst to them, another vessel, the Ada Melmore, a 591-ton iron bark hauling manganese ore from Chile to the UK, was cutting across their path at speed. The Ada Melmore was under sail, her rigging straining as she moved through the haze, her lookouts unable to spot what lay ahead until it was far too late. The collision was catastrophic. At precisely 3:20 a.m., the Ada Melmore slammed into the Kapunda's starboard bow. The sound of twisting iron and snapping timber split the air like thunder. The Kapunda, already under strain from weeks at sea, didn't stand a chance. In seconds, her forward section crumpled. Water surged through the breach and rushed below deck with terrifying speed. Panic spread. The ship listed violently. Within moments, the iron clipper was sinking, fast. Passengers were thrown from their bunks. Others never had time to scream. The women in the single ladies' quarters, 29 in all, were still locked behind bolted doors, a common practice meant to protect their modesty and virtue during the voyage. Not one of them survived. There was no time to launch lifeboats, no time for orders, no time for prayer. The crew of the Ada Melmore could only watch in horror as the Kapunda disappeared beneath the waves in less than 5 minutes. Of the 313 people aboard, only 16 survived, 8 crewmen and 8 male passengers, most of whom had either jumped into the sea or clawed their way up the side of the Ada Melmore. Hundreds were simply gone, including those terrified, pleading, frantic women, secured inside what would become their metallic tomb. In the aftermath, the survivors, soaked, traumatized, and clinging to life, were given shelter aboard the damaged Ada Melmore. But the bark hadn't escaped unscathed. Her bow had been badly crushed in the impact. Eventually deemed unseaworthy, the Ada Melmore was abandoned at sea to sink into the same watery grave as the Kapunda. Miraculously, the 2 remaining Kapunda survivors who had stayed aboard were rescued once again, this time by a passing vessel that spotted them near Maceo. 14 others had already been transferred to a French bark called Ulysses, which brought them safely to Bahia. Following the tragedy, the Board of Trade launched an inquiry in London and concluded that Captain Millikan of the Ada Melmore was to blame. His ship had failed to display proper lights and taken the wrong evasive action. His certificate was suspended for 2 years, a mild punishment considering nearly 300 lives were lost. The tragedy received only brief coverage in the papers. There were no memorials, no reforms, no sweeping changes. Just another forgotten chapter in the long and brutal history of maritime emigration. Now today, an entire century has come and gone, and beneath the Atlantic, the Kapunda still rests in silence, an iron coffin from another age. No wreck has ever been found, no artifacts recovered. Only the story remains of a ship full of hopeful souls, a violent early morning impact, and the haunting epitaph for those who only met death instead of the new life they sought on foreign shores. The sea is my grave. My grave is the sea. If you were moved by the tragic tale of the SS Kapunda, please leave a comment below to share your thoughts on this tragic wreck, and let us know which other shipwrecks you would like to hear about next. Please also like, share, and subscribe so we may continue bringing you more harrowing tales of ship disasters. As always, we thank you for watching.